Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it a few moments to make sure everyone can join us from the start, but we should be kicking off very shortly. All right. Most people have already jumped in, so we can take care of the usual housekeeping items while we're waiting for everyone else. Welcome, everyone. The session will be recorded and shared with everyone after, as we do with all webinars. You will be on mute for the duration of the session, but we have the Q&A panel below, so I encourage you to please do use it. Ask any questions that you might have. We'll aim to answer your questions as we go through the webinar. If by any chance we do run out of time, of course, we'll make sure to follow up with you after. And with that said, welcome to our session. Today, we wanted to be more of a practical webinar where we share some use cases with you and 5 ways of using AI, automation, and analytics to help you take your database to the next level, to fix your bad data and ensure you have good data moving forward so that you can continue to scale up your business. For anyone that hasn't met me, my name is Eric Mativ. I'm a strategy manager here at Bullhorn for all things automation and AI. And today I am joined by Kat and Tom, who are both part of our amazing customer success team. These guys work on the front line, helping our customers make the most out of our technology. I'm going to let them introduce themselves next. Kat, you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kat. I am a customer success consultant in analytics. I am newish to the Bullhorn team. I've been with Bullhorn for just over 9 months, but I do come from a recruiting operations background where I was the Bullhorn administrator for 8 years, including ATS, automation, talent platform, and analytics. So newer to this end of the Bullhorn team, but certainly not new to using Bullhorn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Washington. I'm a senior customer success consultant for the automation CS team. I've been with Bullhorn for about 20 months or so now, but in a previous life, I spent 17 or so years working as a recruiter in the IT tech space, as a recruiter, managing agencies, so on and so forth, and very pleased to bring that experience to Bullhorn.
Great. Thank you guys for joining. All right, so here's what we're going to cover. We'll talk about what data hygiene is. Why is data hygiene so important, especially in the current climate? And the bigger chunk of today's session, of course, we'll spend diving into those best practices. We'll show you how you can use existing technology to fix your back data and ensure it stays clean moving forward. So what is data hygiene? Data hygiene is the process of ensuring that your database contains information that is clean, that is formatted the right way, has all the right information, and is complete with everything that your team needs to be successful. Now, there are a few reasons why data hygiene is so important. One is to help you find the information you need very quickly. If your records are incomplete, that will impact the way that you and your team can work with that data, right? It could impact the quality of your searches. It can affect automation's ability to interact and engage with those records. And even from an analytics perspective, it can affect the quality of your overall reporting. Another big side of things is the trust element, right? If you have low data integrity and everything is formatted the wrong way, or you have key information that is missing, your consultants are not going to trust that data, which means that instead of using what you already have, they're just going to go outside of the system to get it anyways. And in most cases, the data that they do get is information that you already have. If we think about duplication of effort, duplication of data, which is a big risk as well, and even completely unnecessary costs of potentially acquiring the same candidates that you might already have. Now, if you take the information and you put it into the right places for your consultants to see, you're enriching the profiles in a way that gives them a complete overview of who their candidates are, who their customers are, what are their jobs that they need to work, and it's going to improve the overall business development process as well as the recruitment process, making everyone's life easier, right? Now, another big reason why data hygiene is so important is the current state of the industry. Last year, 40% of the agencies that took part of our grid surveys reported revenue growth, and this has been a steady decrease since 2022. So what this is telling us is that the markets are tough, right? There is a lot of political and economic uncertainty going out there, and companies are being very cautious when it comes to hiring, which means that there just aren't enough jobs out there for your consultants to go and get. And from the candidate's perspective, it's actually a very similar thing. And for the exact same reasons, right? Candidates are focusing on job security. They would very much rather stay where they are now and wait until the market conditions get a little bit better rather than taking the risk and jumping onto a new opportunity or a new company where, as we know, in case of recessions, it's usually the first people in that are the first people out, right? So in essence, there aren't just enough jobs out there. There also aren't enough highly skilled candidates that your recruiters can go and work with. However, despite the fact that markets are tough, there's still a lot of companies that manage to outperform the market. So here's what those top performers did different. They focused on improving the overall candidate experience. They focused on being better at matching candidates to jobs and on reducing the time it takes them to fill a vacancy. And they did that in a few different ways, primarily by upgrading their technology usage, more so specifically on the automation side of things. They're using automation in every aspect of their business to speed up their workflows and automate engagement. But also another big reason behind the spike in automation usage is the fact that it's a key foundational technology for a successful AI strategy. And those top performers are actively deploying AI across their business, not just to solve some of their existing challenges, but also to help them differentiate themselves and make sure they stay ahead of the curve. AI has already proven to be incredibly valuable of a solution, not just from a time-saving perspective, but also to grow revenue. We're seeing AI supporting business development. Engagements are being more frequent and more personalized to the recipient than they were before. The recruitment process is more streamlined. And even from a screening perspective, businesses are using AI to screen candidates so that they're matching better candidates to jobs and they're filling vacancies a lot quicker. Now, most of you joining us today are already working on your AI strategy, right? Whether you're experimenting at the moment or you're still planning out how to deploy AI in your business, pretty much everyone is aware that this is transformational technology that you need to implement. However, we do have one very big blocker that most companies are struggling with, and that's data quality. Data quality is the biggest reason why companies haven't pulled the trigger on AI just yet. And it's affecting their ability to successfully implement and execute on their AI strategy in a scalable way as they want to. This is one of the big reasons why we want to do the webinar today, is to show you how you can use technology that already exists to fix your data and make sure that you're better equipped to execute on AI whenever you decide to do so. Now, before we dive into those use cases, here are some of the common reasons why bad data usually occurs in a business. The first one is not a surprise for anyone, right? This is due to human error, especially in cases where you have a lot of manual input that needs to be done by recruiters. There's always going to be space for error. Either they're going to misspell something, or they're going to put certain information in all caps, which we've all seen, or they're going to put data in the wrong place, or they're just not going to put the data at all, right? Individually, when it's a record by record case, it might not seem like a big deal, but these things tend to stack up very, very quickly. And it could affect the way that you're able to interact with those records in the future. So that's one very big pain. The other common reason for bad data is poor workflows. This is cases where you have built certain best practices that you want your recruiters to follow, but those best practices are very admin heavy. There are a lot of low value, repetitive things that consultants are required to do themselves, which they don't see as valuable, right? And it's very low on their priority list, which means that recruiters are going to focus on things that can help them work closer to the money and generate revenue. And they're going to end up putting those tasks on the back burner. They're either going to forget to do those admin tasks, or they're going to skip them altogether because they just can't be bothered to do it. Last, but certainly not least, a big reason for bad data is improper parsing of the information from external sources, whether it's clients' information or it's candidate CVs. Especially when you're importing in bulk, there is always the risk that certain information might be either parsed into the wrong field or might not be parsed in at all. Now, you might be struggling with one of these issues. You might be struggling with all three. But let's have a look at how you can use today's technology to identify bad data and also go and fix it. For that, I'm going to hand it over to Kat first. We'll talk about analytics.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So just a quick note before I get started, everything I'm going to go over on this slide today is available on the Enterprise edition of Analytics and may not be available with the Growth or Starter editions. So just keep that in mind as I go. But some challenges that every staffing agency faces in regards to data. Your database is a living thing. It's in need of frequent quality assurance. Missing information on records can prevent recruiters and business development from being able to reach out and or add additional time to research that missing information. And inaccurate database information can cause skewed results in reporting, not allowing leadership to confidently leverage analytics information. But how do you know what information is missing, and then what do you do once you find it? So to find missing information, there's a few different things you can do. And certainly the easiest is to use those default actionable insights that are already available within analytics. So things like client contacts added with no call logged, jobs that have been open more than 100 days, placements that have a $0 value, contracts with invalid end dates. There are many, many actionable insights that come stock with that Enterprise Edition of Analytics. Another thing that you can do is that you can actually create metrics using Analytics Metric Editor to locate records with missing data. So for example, you can create a metric that is pulling candidates with no email address or client contacts with no phone number, etc. Then you can either just click into those metrics to view all of the results, and there will be a clickable link that you can actually click to open directly within ATS to go ahead and make those updates. Or alternatively, you can pull a report in Slice and Dice, for example, and share that with the appropriate record owners so that they can clean up and update any necessary data. And actually, in a few slides, Eric is going to share some ways that AI can assist us with filling in that missing information as well. But first, I will hand it over to Tom to talk about cleaning and structuring your database with automation.
Thank you, Kat. Great. So just overarching point, just before I go any further, I think the use cases I'm going to discuss here are certainly very useful, whether or not you're sort of preparing to go live with AI or you're just already using Bullhorn automation. But I'm basically going to talk about three different use cases. The first is creating business rules to effectively control status updates for both candidates and sales contacts or the company entity when that becomes available soon. Also going to talk about consolidating candidate skills within your ATS data as well. And finally, we're going to talk about just general self-service data hygiene options you have within automation. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is creating business rules. So if we just think about a common scenario around, we'll take candidates, for example, a candidate status. Generally speaking, that status is controlled by an individual who decides whether or not a candidate is active or they're passive or any other statuses that you may have available. The idea behind this is that as a business, you actually create a business rule which stipulates based on activity or lack thereof to actually designate a status. And you can use triggers within automation to control that. So for example, if you think about kind of segmenting that, you might look at, a candidate doesn't have a note or they don't have a submission, or it might be a note and a submission. And that would effectively trigger their status to go from active to passive. Okay, and if you think about it from a sales contact point of view, you might think about it more from the perspective of this is a sales contact that you made a placement with more than 12 months ago, but they haven't given you a job for less than 6 months. So again, you might want to use those triggers just to change the status. But this is an idea about creating business rules, deciding on those. So that is effectively all the subjectivity in that process is removed. Okay, and automation will help do that for you. The second topic I want to talk about is consolidating candidate skills in your ATS database. So quite often, and I'm going to use an example which is familiar to me because when I was a recruiter, I recruited in the technology space. So quite often you will have a fairly disparate group of skills against a candidate, which you may just want to consolidate to a singular skill to make it easier for your recruiters to actually find those candidates when they're searching. So the example I'll use is Java. Okay, so anybody out there that's familiar with technology will be aware of the fact that Java could also be coded as J2EE, JEE, JavaScript, so on and so forth. So if you have these multiple skills, you may just want to actually consolidate them all under Java, just to make sure that those candidates are more easily accessible to your recruiters. And again, that's something you can do. You can update using automation to help you do that, and just actually have some uniform skills across certain disciplines in your business. The final point I want to talk about is using engagements or surveys within automation to help candidates self-serve. Okay, so anybody that's been on a webinar with me previously will have heard me talk about this, but just to give an example, so most recruitment businesses, the vast majority of the candidates that live within your ATS data are effectively dead. Okay, and the reason I say that is because the information that you hold on them is very, very old. So typically speaking, when a recruiter builds a search, they start bringing up candidates. If you're looking at a CV or a resume, which is 2, 3, 4 years out of date, the usual behavior is a recruiter will move on to the next candidate because the information you hold is so old. So you can use automation to start building lists around last note date is more than 24 months ago, for example, and they do not have a submission for more than 24 months, and you've never placed that person before, ever. What you can then do is incorporate that list into an automation where you will send out a survey and ask people to update their resumes. Okay, that way you're actually maximizing the investment that you guys have already made in terms of your candidate acquisition costs. The likelihood is your recruiters are probably going to be pulling in LinkedIn profiles, profiles from external job boards. All of these things cost money where you already have those candidates within your ATS. Another self-service option is to look at candidates that are missing phone numbers or email addresses. Again, you can use surveys to collect that information from people. You may also want to look at, as a real sort of cleanup of the database, all the candidates that you've got that are uncontactable. Okay, and what I mean by that is you don't hold a phone number or an email address. Now, traditionally speaking, what we would have said is that you've got no way of contacting those people. The option here is to archive them because you're never going to be able to reach them anyway. However, thanks to AI and some interesting things that Eric's going to talk about shortly, there are some solutions to that difficult problem. So archiving straight off the bat probably doesn't need to be an option once you have some of the AI solutions. So with that, I will pass over to Eric.
Thanks, Tom. You mentioned a few very interesting things there, particularly the standardization of statuses and updating fields in the background by building those business rules. We just saw that that's the second biggest reason why we have bad data in a system. By using automation, this is how you get rid of that, right? And a good practice is have a conversation internally, whether it's building a cross-functional team from the recruitment side, the sales side, and operation side, and determine what is very time-consuming and consider busy work for the recruiters, and start focusing on that first so that you can gradually start to drive adoption across the board and make sure that whatever is busy work and it's taking too much of the recruiter's time, you're actually taking care of in the background. As for the second use case for self-service, that's a great example. And yes, traditionally, we would have suggested if you don't have a way to contact these candidates, just go and archive them because you don't have a way to work with them in the future. But now, with the help of AI, you can actually get that information from somewhere else in Bullhorn and put it into the right fields. So that brings us to the first use case, which is related to enriching your candidate and job data with AI. So let's start with the challenge, something that most of us are familiar with, and I'm guessing or hoping not a lot of you, but some of you might be facing today. You probably have records in your ATS that are missing key information. That information might already exist somewhere else, but it's not into the right field. So this could be a salary for a job not being into the field, or the start date being wrong. Or from a candidate's perspective, maybe the candidate doesn't have an email address, or they don't have a phone number, or they don't have a job title or current employer, right? These things can very easily affect your recruiter's ability to find candidates whenever they're executing a search, which means that they could miss out on some really good candidates just because the right information isn't in the right places. It could also mean, and with the risk of repeating myself, that this is how you start losing trust in your ATS from your recruiters. Because if they see that your data is not formatted the right way or key information is missing, they're going to stop relying on your ATS and they're going to just go straight into external sources like job boards to go and acquire potentially the same candidates that you already have, right? So how do we fix that? The first one is, let's identify an example of a target group of records. This could be, for the example's sake, a set of candidates. And by the way, I encourage everyone on the call now to run this experiment whenever you have some time into your own ATS. Run a search to see how many candidates you have that are either missing an email or don't have a phone number or don't have a job title or don't have a current employer. Once you see that result, this will be the group of people that right now your team is most likely not working with, either because they can't find them in searches or because they just don't have a way to engage with those people, right? So this is your target group right there. A great way to solve this is by using an AI data enrichment agent. So if we think about a candidate typically applying for a job with you or just giving you your CV, that CV in most cases is going to include an email address, is going to include a phone number. It will definitely include their latest job and who they work for, right? So chances are that all these candidates that are missing that information just weren't parsed in properly. The data enrichment agent can go and extract that information from places that it already exists, like the CV, and put that data into the right field. It can go and extract the email address from the CV and put it into the email field, the phone number into the phone number field, and so on and so on. And it's a great way for you to enrich your existing data by moving information from one place to another before you even think about going straight from the source. To Tom's point, if you have a bunch of candidates that are missing an email address and the phone number, you don't really have a way to get up-to-date information from them, right? But by using the enrichment agent to extract that data, these people are now become contactable, which means that your recruiters can find them whenever they're executing searches, and they now have a way to engage with those candidates as well. But you can think of this as a phase one in your overall data hygiene strategy. Once you use the enrichment agent to update those records with information you already have, phase two could be then leveraging automation for that self-service element that Tom was talking about earlier. Now that you have a way to engage them, add them to a re-engagement campaign, because chances are you haven't spoken to those people in a very long time. Send them some content, bring the engagement levels up. Once you do that, add them to a data refresh campaign and ask them to complete a survey. Tell you if they're interested in finding a new job, what kind of roles they're interested in at the moment, salary expectations, even a fresh copy of the CV. So this way, not only you're enriching by moving data from one place to another, you're also enabling yourselves to get up-to-date information straight from the source, because you now have a way to contact all these people. Now, let's move to the second use case. And this is still focused on using a data enrichment agent, but rather than moving data from one place into key fields like email, phone number that we know everyone needs, this is more focused on creating new data points for your recruiters that can be of extreme benefit for them. But in a world before AI, it's not that they wouldn't have been possible, but it would have been very difficult to achieve at scale, and it wouldn't have been a scalable strategy. Let's look at the challenge again. So usually when you have candidates applying for a job, recruiters have to go through every applicant to determine who they want to speak with and who they want to reject. On average, they spend between 4 to 7 seconds per candidate when they're looking at their CV, depending on the vertical, right? But in any case, this isn't enough time to determine whether a candidate is a good fit for a job. And in most cases, this presents a big risk. One, it could be that the recruiter ends up picking candidates that could look on paper based on those 4 to 7 seconds that they spent looking at the profile, but actually end up being some pretty disappointing conversations and a waste of time for the recruiter. Or two, which might be even more concerning, they might miss out on some really good candidates just because they didn't find the right information in that brief period of time. Those candidates could very easily be picked up by your competitors. They could be introduced to their customers, and they could be placed by them instead. So how do we fix that? A good way to fix that would be to create a new data point that gives your recruiters a snapshot of who each candidate is, what are some of their core strengths, and why they would be an ideal fit for a particular type of job. Or in other words, that could be a candidate summary, right? In a world before AI, to summarize a candidate's profile, the recruiter will have to do that manually by either looking at the CV or any other information that they have, which is just not scalable, right? Unless there is a specific use case behind it, say they want to pitch that candidate to a client, no recruiter is going to go and bother summarizing every single candidate in the ATS, nor should they. Their focus shouldn't be on doing admin tasks. It should be on revenue generating activity. But with AI, things now have changed a little bit, and you actually have a scalable way to achieve this. So who's an example target group here? This can be pretty much every candidate that you have in your ATS today, including every new candidate that you add moving forward. Because if this AI technology is agentic, it means that it will just keep running in the background and do its own thing without the need for human involvement. So here are the steps to do that. The first one is figure out what an ideal candidate summary looks like for your business. Is that a 100 to 150 word paragraph? Is that 5, 6 very concise bullet points? And what is that summary going to be based off of? Is it going to be based off of the CV? Or is it going to include other custom fields that you might have against the candidate record, or skills, what categories they have, or work or employment history? Whatever that ideal format looks like, determine what that is for your organization. Once you do that, you can then use the data enrichment agent to go and execute that prompt and create this piece of content. Put that piece of content into a new field on the candidate record and put it at the very top of the profile. So it's the first thing that the recruiters see whenever they open the candidate or they preview them from the binoculars. It's an amazing data point that can give them a very good understanding of who the candidates are, and it can speed up the time it takes them to preview every applicant for a job or every candidate they're going through when they're executing a search. Another big benefit behind this, whenever they do want to pitch a candidate to a client, they already have the summary pre-built for them. They just need to copy it and insert it into the email. Or if they're using a messaging agent, that information is already pre-built. So it could be the AI messaging agent that just dynamically includes it for them every single time they want to pitch someone. All right. Third and final use case for AI. This is not as much focused on data enrichment, but it's focused on using AI to optimize the way you search and match candidates to jobs. Let's start with the challenge again, right? The most obvious challenge is that if you have bad data, we spoke about this a few times, your consultants are just not going to trust it and they're going to go straight to those external sources, go to the job boards that you've partnered up with and start searching there. First way to fix that is following the first 4 use cases that me, Kat, and Tom shared with you. But another big challenge, especially when it comes to search, is that whenever your recruiters go outside of the system to find candidates, especially if you don't have a centralized way to source candidates, that means that they have to replicate the same search over and over again into multiple job boards, which is a lot of duplication of effort and wasted time for the recruiter. Not only that, but when they're in the job boards, they don't really have an idea of whether those candidates already exist into your database or not. By the time they figure it out, they've already spent the credit, they've downloaded the profile, and they've parsed them into the ATS. So at that point, you have a few things. One, big risk of data duplication because they're going to create multiple records for the same person. And two, a lot of unnecessary costs in them acquiring the same people multiple times just to make a placement. So how do we fix that? And for this solution, I'm going to talk more about our AI search and match tool, one of the technologies that we recently released at Bullhorn that is AI specific. The first thing that you need to do to optimize your search and your candidate data is to create a database first mindset. A step to doing that is improving your overall data quality, which you already know, and we saw in the previous 4 use cases. But another one would be to make it very easy and convenient for your recruiters to see who are the top candidates that are already in your ATS that would be a good fit for that job. AI search and match can really help with that. So the way this works, and we have dedicated webinars to AI search and match to go way more in detail. And if you want to learn more about it, reach out to your account manager so they can actually run you through a deep dive demo. But at a very high level, the way AI search and match works is it takes key information from a job. It then takes those keywords and includes all the synonyms or other ways in which those keywords might be written to build a complex Boolean search. It then executes that search against your database. And once it gets the results, it's going to parse those results through a machine learning model. This is a model that has been trained on over 20 billion data points. And in a very simple explanation, all this model does is it looks at the job and it says, right, for this type of job, historically, this has proven to be the ideal candidate profile. And it will start to look for that candidate profile out of that result list. And this is the order in which it will rank and surface those candidates to your recruiters. Rather than just your traditional keyword to keyword, it will also be based on actual outcome specific data. Now, every time your recruiters open a job or create a new job, this entire process I just described happens in the background, and the top 10 recommended candidates are surfaced in the job record being the first thing that your recruiters see. It's a great way to create that convenience element, right? They can see the top 10 candidates in the job record, they can preview them there, they can even shortlist them on the spot if they choose to do so. If they want to expand on that search, with just one click, that could redirect them to the candidate list showing everyone else that has been matched against the opportunity ranked from best to worst. Again, creating that convenience element and showing all the candidates that you already have, which would be a great fit for that job. And once that's done, in case they want to go to external sources from within the ATS, they can just flip from what's in Bullhorn to what's in those job boards that you've partnered up with. They don't have to replicate the search. The search is the exact same components are executed against those job boards, which means that duplication of effort and that wasted time, that goes away as a challenge. But also, as your recruiters are going through those candidates that are external, anyone that already exists in Bullhorn, they'll be able to easily see, which helps reduce the risk of data duplication and those unnecessary costs in acquiring the same people multiple times. You will have cases where there is a candidate that already exists in Bullhorn, but their CV is quite old to one of the points that Tom mentioned earlier. You might have people that have a 2-3-year-old CV. So if you find an up-to-date version of that profile within the job board, you can easily parse it in and update the record. But what you're not doing is you're not creating duplicate values, and you're not wasting money in acquiring the same people multiple times unless you choose to do so to enrich your data further. Okay, that was the final use case we wanted to share with you. We threw a lot of information. So as a brief summary, here's some of the key takeaways. We're in a very tough market, as we have been over the last few years, but there are still businesses that consistently outperform the market, and they're top performers in our industry. These top performers are currently focusing on upgrading automation and deploying technology as much as they can at a business-wide level. And they're deploying AI not only to solve challenges, but also to stay ahead of the curve. AI is technology that has already proven to be successful and provide value across different parts of the recruitment and business development process. Can look at saving potentially up to 17 hours per week for every recruiter in their admin, in the recruiting, and in the BD efforts. One of the leading reasons why most businesses are still in the planning stage and haven't executed on their AI strategy is the lack of confidence in their data. So poor data is the leading blocker for deploying a successful and scalable AI strategy. Human error and manual entry are among the leading reasons why most businesses have bad data. So in order to fix these in reverse order, improve your data so that you can be better equipped to implement AI across your business that you can use to then help you differentiate yourselves and stay ahead of the curve, make sure that you follow some of the best practices that we just shared with you to clean and standardize your data. Use tools like analytics to monitor your data hygiene, to improve your operational efficiency. Use AI and automation to enrich your data and standardize the quality of workflows for your team, and create a database first mindset by making it easy and convenient for your team to see who are the most suitable candidates in your database today. And every time they want to go external, make it simple for them again by centralizing the sourcing efforts and enable them to see who you already have, to save time on effort, to save on data duplication risks, and to save on unnecessary costs of candidate acquisition. That was everything on our part. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to go into questions now. I think we have a few moments, but I will leave the QR code for a webinar that we did a couple of weeks, I think it was. It's a very interesting session. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, to go and check it out. It's a customer spotlight talking about real experiences with AI. So as we're going through the questions, just make sure you register for that one. Okay. First question, does Bullhorn have a data enrichment agent built in, or is it an additional service? It's a very good question. So it depends on what you have today. With Bullhorn, I would highly recommend you reach out to your account manager and they can walk you through it. The data enrichment agent is part of the agentic side of AI. It's just one of multiple agents that we have across the board that not only support with enrichment, but also messaging, better candidate matching, and even a screening process. All right. Another question, how do we enable AI search and match? So AI search and match was launched not too long ago. It's new technology, Stephen. So reach out to your account manager if you're already a Bullhorn customer. If not, drop your details in the interest form, and we can make sure to reach out to you and walk you through what that looks like in a deep dive and how you can get it enabled. Is it required to have AI search and match to see recommended candidates block in a job? Yes, that is one of the requirements. So there are two ways to do that. One is, there are two types of AI, essentially. The first one is user-driven technology. So these will be the tools that you guys give to your recruiters to make them faster and better at what they do, in the form of an AI assistant that can support them with content creation, and AI search and match that I just talked about. So for that one, that will be a requirement if you want to have the recommended candidates card surfaced to the recruiter every time they open a job. Absolutely. There is also the agentic side of AI, which includes a matching agent that follows the same algorithm to auto-match candidates and auto-shortlist them against the job. So it depends on what you do. If you want this to be in the hands of your recruiters, go for AI search and match. If you want it to be fully agentic and run in the background, then agents edition of AI could be an alternative for you to explore as well. But again, I highly encourage you to speak to your account manager. They can break down all the different options. All right. Questions keep flowing in. We have time to cover a couple more. Do we have guys to talk us through enabling everything that we have covered in the webinar, example, the candidate summary? We have a lot of content built out in our knowledge base already. We are continuing to build more content, especially in the AI side of things, because as you all can imagine, this is still very new technology. So we're releasing content on a regular basis. Either check the knowledge base or reach out to your account manager, our customer success team. I'm going to put Tom and Kat on the spot here, but they'll be happy to help you in building out use cases and how are the best ways to do that. Another thing that I would suggest as well is we have focus groups, depending on where you're based. We have focus groups where you can brainstorm with other recruitment leaders on how to build particular use cases for automation and for AI. And these things are evolving very quickly because AI is becoming a bigger and bigger component of them. So I would encourage you to reach out to your account manager about the focus groups as well. Okay. Can AI look at our candidate in Bullhorn and then look into LinkedIn or elsewhere to find and update Bullhorn records into new details? So Chris, there are a few different ways for you to achieve what you're asking. I would highly encourage you to reach out to your account manager. And the reason why I say that is it might not be just Bullhorn technology, but there are alternatives that we can support you with, and we have plenty of partners that can help with that. All right, question from Larry. Is there a way to automate follow-up emails in Bullhorn? Tom, do you want to take that one? That's more on the automation side of things.
Sorry, take myself off mute. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can just really build in additional emails based on how people have interacted with the original emails using wait steps. So yeah, it's just really a case of building those additional emails based on how people have engaged. So for example, have people opened or clicked on links, etc. You'd probably insert a small wait step of a day or two before you're following email correspondence. But yes, absolutely, there is a way to do that within automation.
Fantastic. Okay, we have time for one last question from Randy. What products do you recommend to use within Bullhorn regarding AI? So Randy, it very much depends on where you are in your digital transformation journey. What do I mean by that? If you're only using Bullhorn ATS and you're not using analytics or automation just yet, I would say look into those first, because these are key foundational technologies if you want to build and scale an AI strategy successfully. If you're already at that stage where you're using analytics and you're using automation, then you can start rolling out AI gradually. I would definitely not say that this is a 0 to 100 kind of journey as anything else or any other transformative technology. Same thing was for automation a few years ago. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So start off gradually. The AI assistant, it's a natural first step because you're giving your recruiters the ability to generate content from within Bullhorn without having to rely on third-party solutions like a ChatGPT and jump back and forth in between your system or extract data from Bullhorn that they're putting into third parties. So generative AI embedded into your ATS is a great first step. And then from there, depending on where you are, either expand into AI for search and match or expand into the agentic side of AI. All right. We have a few other questions. I do apologize that we're not able to follow up with everything. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will follow up on the questions that we didn't answer and send you back an email. For everything else, reach out to your account managers, fill out the form, and we look forward to chatting to you soon. I want to thank Kat and Tom for joining me today as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.